what's going on, everybody? I'm Noah from PhoneDog.com, and that might be the last time I say those words. This is kind of bittersweet for me, but this is my farewell video, my last video for PhoneDog.com. After 4.5 years or so, it's time to move on, and so I'm saying goodbye to my family at PhoneDog and moving on to more things. And I want to do one last video, mostly to say thank you to all you guys and gals out there. Although, did I say gals? To all y'all out there. Also, we'll do a little phone stuff because I don't want to go out on that note. It's all about phones. So we'll give you little phones at the end, my top 5 all-time phones list. But first, I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who watches the videos. And keep watching. PhoneDog's not going anywhere. I'm going on to do some other things. But I will remain a fan of PhoneDog, just like I hope all of you are and will remain. And, you know, the crew there, Aaron, John Q now, Sydney, you know, John and Adriana and David, who, you know, have gone on to do their own sites as part of the PhoneDog family. Everybody there is still going to keep doing the thing, and they'll still get all the latest and greatest phones, which is what you want. But for me, just time to move on. So you can follow me online on Twitter. My new Twitter handle is just my name, Noah Kravitz. And also you can follow my blog, nk126.com. So when I decide what I'm up to next, I'll let you know there. And if you're interested, you can follow along. But of course, continue to follow along with PhoneDog. The YouTube channel's not going anywhere. The website's not going anywhere. The other website's Droid Dog, Today's iPhone. All the other websites not going anywhere. And of course, you can follow PhoneDog on Twitter at PhoneDog. And then also all the characters, PhoneDog Aaron and everybody else. All right. So again, thank you for all the support doing videos. When we started out, we didn't even know we were going to do a blog, let alone do videos. I mean, the company started before I did. When I joined up, I was writing reviews, and then we started a blog, and then we started some videos, and, you know, here we are now. So anyway, thanks, everybody. All right, so enough of that. Here we go. My top 5 all-time cell phones. These are my all-time favorites. Not necessarily what I would say are the 5 best phones ever, because, you know, as technology advances, you would think that the current phones are going to be better than the old phones. And then also, how can you compare phones from era to era? You know, it's like comparing sports, sports players, athletes from different eras. It'd be like comparing, you know, who's the best, LeBron, Magic Johnson, or Oscar Robertson. You know, not to say those are the best basketball players ever, but that's the comparison that came to mind because they're all kind of do-it-all players, but from different eras. So how do you compare, right? So instead, I'm just going to give you my top 5 all-time favorite phones, and I'm going to list them in alphabetical order. So it's not 1 to 5, it's alphabetical. Alphabetical according to manufacturer, because I don't know, that's just the way I wrote them down. All right, so here we go. All right, so the first one on my list is the Apple iPhone, the original edition. And this one makes the list because it changed the game. Yes, there were touchscreen phones before iPhone. Yes, other companies had touchscreen phones in development, you know, when the iPhone came out. But this is the one that really changed the modern era of the cell phone and the smartphone. It changed it in terms of styling. It changed it in terms of, you know, just total vertical integration. One company making the hardware, making the software, controlling the ecosystem with everything from, you know, the software on the computer to the carrier relationships to, you know, the iTunes store for media. It just really changed the game. However, you know, marketing wise, Apple, you know, controlling the shots, launching at their own events, not launching at the trade shows, so many different ways that it changed things up. And then in its wake, you know, you've got all these great modern operating systems, Android, WebOS, all kinds of other stuff. Again, not to say those weren't necessarily in development before, but iPhone came out first and it changed things up. So there you go. The Apple iPhone, the original version, and also personally, I still think the original version had the coolest styling, even if it wasn't necessarily the most practical. Okay, next on the list in alphabetical order is the Ericsson T28. Now this one's from back in the day when it was Ericsson, not Sony Ericsson. And this phone, you know, at the time when it first came out, I was living and working in New York City. I was working in Lower Manhattan, and I would often walk through Chinatown on my way to or from the train, depending where I was going. And I would see there were all these dudes in Chinatown who'd be hanging out, having their phone calls outside on the street with this phone. And this phone just looked like, you know, it looked like something from Star Trek or something. It was modern, it was slim, it had the flip, it had that kind of crazy stubby antenna on top, but it was just so much thinner and had the flip, you know, little flip out thing, so much thinner than anything else out there that it was just like, that was really the first phone that I was like, I want that phone. Not just I want a cell phone or which rate plan or whatever, but I want that phone. So the Ericsson T28 makes my list. Next one up is the Helio Ocean. This is a smartphone that was a classic example of something just being ahead of its time. And it was ahead of its time sort of in two ways, good and bad. The good was the functionality for the time was just off the charts. It was arguably the most advanced smartphone out there, between the browser, the universal search capabilities, all the things it could do. It was just a hardcore geeky device that was also made not just for the specs, but for communicating and the way it worked. The double edge, the dark side of the device, was that it was ahead of its time in terms of, it launched on a carrier that ultimately went belly up. The whole MVNO model, the Helio model. Helio was super cool, but they just, the business, it was not the right thing. MVNOs were going the way of the dinosaurs, and Helio got caught up in that, in addition to some other issues that they had. And then the other thing was the functionality of the phone was ahead of the technology and the manufacturing processes. So this was a really thick phone with 2 keyboards. It slid like 2 ways, 3 layers, two-way slider with a numerical keyboard and a full QWERTY board. And this was before the touchscreens, really came out and took over. And so it was just kind of too thick and bulky for mainstream adoption, in addition to the other issues with the MVNO and all that kind of stuff. But so what? It was perhaps the most ahead of its time smartphone ever, and one of my favorites certainly. So the Helio Ocean on my list of my top 5 all-time favorite phones. Next up is a phone that I still use whenever I get smartphone overload. I go back to the Nokia Express Music 5310. I love this phone for 2 simple reasons, and those of you who followed me on PhoneDog will know one of them is that it's got a standard 3.5mm headphone jack. Luckily, even if I was still doing phone reviews, you wouldn't have to hear me complain about it, because almost everything now has a standard headphone jack on it, which is great, because long time coming on that. But also, this phone is it's thin, it's simple, it works, it gets good reception. It has a camera. It can play a few games. It's got the S40 interface on it, so it's low end. But you can get on the web and you can do some basic stuff on this. But basically, what it is it's a thin, reliable music phone. So you've got your music controls, you've got your headphone jack. It's super thin. It works. That's it. And I'll tell you what, I still like using this phone from time to time when I just get tired of the smartphone overload. Or especially to do stuff like go running, or if I'm just doing something where I don't want to carry around a big smartphone, I want a little phone. Here you go. The Express Music 5310, definitely on my top 5 all-time favorites list. And the final entry, and this is, like I said, it's alphabetical order, but also it's apropos that this is the final entry, because this is the phone that brought me to PhoneDog. The Sony Ericsson Walkman W800i. This was the not the American version, but an import version of the W800 Walkman phone. Eventually the W810 launched on AT&T, but the W800i is the phone that I bought when at the time when I got connected with PhoneDog. Basically, when I left the job I had before PhoneDog, we were looking for a new cell phone contract, and as I do, I spent a lot of time obsessively researching which phone to get. And at that time, back then, this is 4.5 years ago or so, like I said, there were still these little stores in the Bay Area, they still exist some places, I hope, where it was like a third-party store where you signed up. It wasn't like a T-Mobile corporate store, a Sprint corporate store, or whatever. It was a third-party store, and you could go in, and if you signed up through them for your service, kind of like Amazon or Let's Talk Online now, you could get these phones at really super cheap prices. And at the time, there were imported phones that you couldn't get anywhere else because they weren't U.S. market phones. They worked, they just lacked, one of the bands. So my reception on T-Mobile, which is what I had it on, wasn't quite as good as a T-Mobile phone would have been. But so what, man? It was a Walkman phone. The W800i, that phone at the time, 2-megapixel camera with flash, was like off the charts, the best thing you could get. But it had a full-on Walkman on it. It had a removable memory card. It had an adapter so I could use my own headphones with it, because at the time, it was hard to find a phone that had a 3.5mm headphone jack. And it was just super cool. It was white and orange, and it came in this really fancy box with all these accessories. And it was the bomb. And when I was looking for that phone, trying to figure out which phone to buy and where to buy it, that's where I came across the ad for this website called PhoneDog that was looking for phone reviewers. and I had some experience doing tech journalism, and I thought, yeah, you know, I'll give it a shot. And I sent them an email, and they wrote back to me, and I did a review, and here we are today. So the Sony Ericsson Walkman W800i on my list of top five all-time favorites, and also has a special place in my heart, you know, because it led me to PhoneDog. So there you go. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Continue to watch PhoneDog and all the PhoneDog websites. You know, more of what you love about them as phones become tablets or whatever else is next. They'll keep you covered. As for me, like I said, you can keep tabs on me on Twitter and on my blog. And, you know, it's the internet. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to be doing it in a different place. All right? Till next time, thank you so much for watching. Much, much more on PhoneDog.com. We'll see you later.